Okay, in this lesson, we're going to talk about parametric modeling, and this is a different approach to what you have learned previous to this assignment. So, we're going to be using a new tab here in addition to the home tab, of course, for our drawing. The parametric tab is right next to annotate here. And you're going to see some different things here. Geometric constraints and dimensional constraints. We're also going to be using auto constrain a lot. We'll get to all this stuff one thing at a time. So if we're looking at this drawing here, it has a lot of geometric constraints that we need to add to it in order to make it constrained. For this drawing, you see if you're just paying attention to the layer line or the layer of object lines, the white right here, we've got a lot of things going on. We have some circles that need to be defined by their size, their diameter, and their location. We also have some radii here that need to be defined by their location and their size. And we also have some lines that need to be defined on their location and other attributes of those. Okay. We also need to know the relative location or the fixed location, the defined location of where these objects lie in relation to each other. So here are some geometric constraints, and you can see the symbols in here, and there's a lot going on here, but it'll start to make sense over time. Coincident constraints, collinear constraints, concentric constraints, parallel, perpendicular, horizontal, vertical, tangent, equal, horizontal, and a lock, which each one of these objects will need one lock location so that you can base all of your other locations off of. Okay, so that's your geometric constraints, which are right here. Another thing that you're going to be adding is dimensional constraints. And that is shown here. And we've talked about this and gone over this a lot. Relations to each other. How far over, in this case, are they? 48 over. This is a 60-inch line. This is 96 units from this location to this location. Radii, etc. So if I was going to draw a line like this and I wanted to make it look like this, I would need to define where this location is and a location here and a length. I would also need to say I want this to be horizontal. So here are some geometric constraints and dimensional constraints in order to define this line. You would need a fixed location here. You would need to tell it, I want this to be horizontal, and the location would be defined once I give it a length of this line, or height of this line. Moving on to circles, I would need to establish where the location, the center point of this circle is, and what size the circle is. So, to apply geometric constraints, I would find the location of this, and I would also assign a diameter in this case, and then that would be defined. Here's a more complicated one. You would define what geometric and dimensional constraints you would need for this line, and then also this line. So I have added a vertical constraint for this line. I would still need to define the location here. The location here, And if I wanted this line to be uh, located here, um, I would need to establish that I wanted this line to touch this line, and I want this line to be horizontal. And then finally, after I've added my coincident constraint, which will tell it, okay, I want this line to touch this line. Then, after I've added a perpendicular constraint, my horizontal constraint, my vertical constraint, coincident constraint, I'm just going to assign my dimensional constraints. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. So let's go ahead and do this from scratch. And there's a bunch of different ways you could do this. But if you look in your book on page 8-4, you're going to see the drawing with its dimensions. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip and establish that down here. So if you look at the finished drawing here, here are the different elements that make that up. We are going to create each element in the relative location one at a time in order to define this finished shape. Okay. So I'm just going to do it right off here, and I'm going to start with this small little circle, this one right here, because that's what our dimensions are based off of. So I'm going to fix this in location. So I'm going to define where it's located and the size of it. And that way I've got that defined and I can base everything else off of that. So I'm going to do it right off to the side right here, and I'm going to use these dimensions just kind of as reference. Okay, so when you do parametric modeling, you're just going to kind of rough in what the size is, and then you're going to establish that size. So I'm going to do a diameter circle, and I'm just going to draw it right about here, and just kind of like, okay, there we go, got that size. I'm going to go to parametric, and since I'm going to be using this as my fixed location, I'm going to go to the little lock right here, and I'm just going to click right here on this circle. The lock constraint appears there, and then I need to tell it, okay, well, how big is it? Now I know where that location is. How big is it? Okay, I want it to be 20 units. Okay, so I'm going to click on my dimensional constraint of for the diameter, and I'm going to type in 20. That is now defined in its fixed space with a size. If I select it and I try and move it, it's not going to let me. It's fixed. Okay, let's add this next circle right here. Same thing. I'm going to create a diameter circle, something like that. And I'm going to assign some geometric constraints to that. I want to make this concentric with that circle. So I'm going to click this circle and this circle. That defines the location. Now I need to tell it, how big is that? Same thing. All right, so diameter. It's going to put it right on top, which is annoying. And I want to make that 30. So I'm just going to click on that and I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to make that 30. Once again, if I tried to move this, it's not going to let me. That's defined. Okay, let's do some other things. I'm going to do this circle and I'm going to do this circle. Okay, same approach. I'm going to do this one here. I'm going to tell it I want this to be 10. And what I want is I need to find the relation location-wise between these circles and this circle. Now, I know what my horizontal distance is. It's going to be 48, but I don't know. Well, I mean, it has a 0 vertical distance. The book does kind of go over that approach. I don't really like establishing uh, a location, a dimensional constraint of 0. That doesn't really make logical sense to me. I mean, I get it, but I don't like that. A bunch of different things. I love using construction lines, and you would keep those in to define locations of things, and then you wouldn't delete them when you're done because they help define locations, but you just would hide them in the end. So I'm going to use a construction line here. I'm going to make it 48, a length of 48, and I'm going to tell it, okay, well, I want it to be located at this. I want the base to be located in the center of these circles, and I want it to be horizontal. So I'm just going to draw this right here. Okay. Parametric constraint. Geometric constraint. That is coincident. I'm going to touch toward the end of this line, and you can see the location that I click on the line is imperative. If I just click on the line right here, see the little red X? If I click there and then clicked on the circle, it's going to snap the center of this to the center of that. If I click over here, it's going to want to move that all the way over to here. So I'm just going to click close, and you can see the red X appear. So I'm going to click this object here, and I can select either one of these to snap to the midpoint. I'm going to do that. Okay, that's fixed in location. Now I need to tell it I want it to be vertical and the length of it. So let's do, horizontal. Horizontal, click. Great, it knows it's defined here by location and it is horizontal. Now I'm going to tell it I want from this edge right here, I'm just going to get it close. See a little red X and there. And I want this to be 48. Okay. This is the point that I want my circle to touch. So I'm going to do coincident. Click on the circle. You can see the little red X appears. That's what I want. And then I'm going to touch close to the end here. There you go. It's happy in that location. That's great. I'm going to do one other line heading over here for our other circle. And since it gives us a dimension from the center here to 96 over, instead of doing the math, which I can always do, I'm just going to put it up here. Okay. Let's make this horizontal. Constraint the end of this line to the center of the circle. Linear. (96). Now let's add our next circle right here. I'm in the wrong layer. Object line. Okay, just going to put it over here. Let's give this a diameter of 20. And I want to do a coincident between here and the end of that line. Okay, so now we have our locations here of our different circles. This is fully defined at this point. I don't need to add anything else right now. These aren't moving anywhere. These are great, but we still have a ways to go. I'm going to make sure I'm saving. Now I'm going to do my outside circle here that I'm going to trim. Home tab, center radius. I'm just going to draw this off to the side here. I'm also going to do another one here that I'm going to do over here in a minute. Let's do size first. Radius of 30 for this one. And I'm going to do, no, I'm not going to do coincident. I could do a coincident between the center of this and here. Or I can just do concentric right there. That's locked into place. $20 for this one. Concentric for these circles. Okay, now I'm going to want a line here, and then I'm going to have a little radius going down here, fillet, and then another line going across. So I'm just going to kind of rough this in, you know. I could turn my ortho on, but I'm still going to, and I'll do that right now, but I still need to tell it that I want it to be horizontal. So I'm just going to do that here and something like that. Okay, I'm going to add some things here first, and then in the end, I'm going to snap it, not snap, but you know what I mean. I want this to touch the quadrant. I want this to touch the quadrant. That also means that this is going to be tangent here and tangent here. Okay, so let's do that first. So I'm going to click. I want this horizontal. I also want this to be horizontal. And I want this to be vertical. Okay, this has a length of 60. And you can see I've lost that relation there. Yeah, I'll get to that. Okay, so I'm going to do a coincident, the end of this line and the end of this line. I'm going to need to do it between the end of this line and the end of this line. Okay, so tangent between, I want to do this line and this object. Before, what we've done is, and by default, is it wants to snap to the center of this circle. But what I need to tell it is I want it to be tangent between this line and this circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this line and I'm going to click on this circle. I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay. I still have some other constraints to do. As you can see, this still doesn't know where it is in relation to this circle. So I'm going to tell it I want it to be coincident between here, and I'm going to right click and go to object, and I'm going to click there. I'm going to do the same thing here. Endpoint here, right click, object, circle. Okay. Okay, so for this fillet, we're going to create our radius circle, and then we are going to add relations and trim. We're going to learn faster ways in the future how to do this, but this is what we're going to use for now. I'm just going to create this over here. Oops. Let's give this a size 15. And I want a tangent relation between this circle and this line. And then I want a coincident. Let's see. Let's do tangent between this line and that circle. That's not going to work. Tangent is not going to work. Okay, now we have our tangency here, and we want to have this point touch the circle. We can't have a tangency between this and here because I can't have it touching there and tangent at the same. It's geometrically impossible. So I'm going to do my coincident here. Touch right there. Right click, object, circle. Okay, now things are going to get a little bit trickier. Let's do our trim. I'm going to trim that away, trim this away, trim this away. So notice I've lost a bunch of constraints. See the little blue guys? They've disappeared. So that means this doesn't know where that point is anymore. It also means that it doesn't know where this is anymore. Same thing here. Okay, you can see some of them still remain. I'm gonna do some other mirroring here and some more trimming, and you're gonna see that we've lost relations, but we're gonna quickly add those back in with an auto constraint. So I'm going to use this construction line as my mirror line. I'm going to select these objects to mirror. I'm going to press enter and I'm going to do that. Next, I'm going to trim these circles out. Okay, notice there's a lot of blue missing. So we're going to add those back in by going to auto constrain, and I'm just going to select the entire thing. Okay, those have now appeared, but we have lost a few things by doing that trimming. You can see there's no defined radius for this, and we've lost the radius for our fillets as well. So I'm just going to quickly add those back in because they are correct. I just need to tell it that that's defined. So let's just go ahead and add this back in. Press enter. Same thing here. There. 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 So I'm going to do a little check to make sure I have all my constraints in. And I just noticed that one wasn't added in. You can see up here, I've got my tangent constraint, but it's not down here. I'm going to quickly add that back in. There we go. Now, if I tug on any of these lines, notice that nothing moves. That means that this is finally fully constrained. Now, the last thing I want to do is I want to hide all of these things. So I'm going to hide all of my geometric constraints, and I'm going to hide all my dimensional constraints. And then I would hide in the end when I'm ready to turn this in. I'd go to my layer properties and I would just hide my construction line layer. And there we go. Now, if you are adding in your dimensions as shown up here, you would still need to do that. So you would go in and do your typical, adding what's going to be shown as far as your dimensions, and then you would add your center marks and symmetry or whatever else you're going to add. Okay, so just to recap, in order to create this, you're just going to relatively put in, you're going to kind of draw more or less close to what you want. And I highly recommend that you do one element at a time, like we did. I know it seems tedious, but if you were to, say, quickly draw just some random things that you haven't assigned sizes to, you're going to find that it gets out of control very, very quickly. So I would take my time, come up with a plan, use construction lines to help you. And don't delete them at the end, because then you'll lose those relations. To learn more about our program, check us out at fvcc.edu, and for more tips and tricks, subscribe to this channel.